All right. Here we go. All right, so I put together these slides here to guide us through our thoughts on the future of transfer research and teaching. And as you know, TFT is our guiding star, as it were. It's not everybody's guiding star, but that's where we're going to start. And we'll use it to talk about our kind of 5 possible futures for transfer research. All right, so you know that this is kind of how we engage with it, but as possible futures to the multiple iterations of TFT. The first one I was thinking about was readiness to learn. This one's kind of close to our hearts at the moment because we've got our upcoming 3Cs article with the TFT transfer group. And if I recall correctly, in the article, we're sort of thinking about how readiness to learn basically comes before TFT, before transfer, that like if students aren't ready, then transfer becomes very difficult, but also that readiness has all these different dimensions, like social dimensions, material dimensions, affective dimensions, cognitive dimensions, and is related to things like self-efficacy and the perceptions of it. So one kind of element to readiness to learn as a future for transfer research is like, exploring all those different dimensions, right?
Right. Yeah, it's basically the students' willingness to engage in different writing concepts and whether or not that's going to help them have that framework that we know helps them to be able to transfer within college. So we also recently presented abroad with our colleague Jessie Moore on readiness and teaching for transfer at 2 different conferences. We were with her at the Decoding the Disciplines conference in Germany. And while we were there, we talked and presented on the idea of readiness to learn. And she has done a lot of work with this, just recently publishing a book on engaged learning, which is a really exciting connection to think about in terms of readiness to learn. And this really moves us to our next concept, which is disciplinary frameworks. And we're really thinking about disciplinary frameworks in a couple different ways. The role that transfer research and teaching will play in broad efforts towards disciplinary coherence and what that actually looks like in practice and how people can respond to that. One thing in particular that is already being done, Tom Skeen is doing an edited collection, an encyclopedia of sorts called Constructing the Threshold, where lots of people have taken up the idea of transfer, including teaching for transfer, and try to respond to definitions, the importance of it, and making connections across the various key terms and theories. So another one that's a disciplinary frame that we can think about is the framework for post-secondary writing. How does transfer research inform and intersect with the habits of mind framework? And we know that people have been thinking about this, but haven't really done too much work on what that looks like in practice. So we might wonder, how does TFT interact with the framework for success?
Yeah, totally. I don't know of any specific, I don't think I know of any, or nothing comes to mind, ongoing work about that right now. But that does seem kind of part and parcel of one of those big like disciplinary efforts to put the pieces together for folks to think about threshold concepts and habits of mind and transfer all together. So the other that we were talking about was multimodality. This one's pretty close to my heart, as you know. But really the kind of like original, the OG for transfer and multimodality, at least in my mind, is Erin Workman's early work on mapping and TFT, having her students use visual modes to express what they know about writing and theorize writing. Since then, obviously, like Ryan Shepard has done a lot of work on this. Crystal Van Coten has a book on transfer across media, especially using multimodal methods to explore multimodal transfer. It's a bit of a mouthful, but she does it really well. And Stacy Pig talking about mobile literacies as well as a way to think about how literacies travel and transfer. And then most recently, I've been working on an edited collection with Ryan Shepard, Lillian Mina, and Kara Alexander on multimodal transfer. It should be out soon. And Kathy actually wrote the afterword and hit on some of the same themes there that we're exploring a little bit today. So at the end of the afterword, she has 4 kind of ways forward for thinking about transfer research. They're coming up with a common vocabulary. So thinking about like how we define transfer, how we define multimodality, et cetera. Lifelong and life-wide learning, which we'll talk about in a second. Student theorizations as an important part of facilitating transfer and as an important thing for informing our research as well. And then not surprisingly, identity as well, which kind of dovetails with our 4th, which is thinking about transfer research in the context of internationalization. But that's really your strong point.
Yeah, so internationalization actually connects with our last point, but so I won't jump too far ahead with that. But it's in 2019, Jessie, with her Center of Engaged Learning, did a Writing Beyond the University and a seminar, research seminar, and it brought together a bunch of scholars from across the world. And when she did that, it really prompted a bunch of thinking on what does it mean to have TFT in outside of US context. And so I did some research, and I know Kathy has done some research as well on using TFT on other continents. For me specifically, this has looked like what does it mean to bring 2 large bodies of scholarship, TFT specifically, and work integrated learning together. And what my research team has done is bring those 2 bodies of scholarship into conversation, because we really believe that students need to have something like TFT in order to be able to go into the work integrated learning experiences and be successful. And that's what the research has really found, that students need to have something like a curriculum that teaches for transfer in order to be successful in their future writing context, especially those in the workplace. And Matt, do you want to go ahead and jump in?
Yeah, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how integral the Elon programs, I mean, Transfer Camp, as we joke about them, but how integral they've been to a lot of this work for you, for Kathy as well, all the way through the iterations of TFT. And I'm super excited by their internationalization efforts, and how they will dovetail with work by like Wenqi Kui and Gita Dasbinder, and others who are doing studies on transfer and on TFT in particular for English language learners, speakers of other languages in both US contexts and elsewhere. So I'm excited to see what comes out of all that work as well. And you mentioned that our final theme, as it were, is writing outside the university. So as with internationalization, I'm kind of on the outside looking in, but enjoying for this future for transfer research. But really the lifelong, life-wide writing folks who've done a lot of work at writing research across borders, for instance, like I really have enjoyed their work and found it very informative. But you've done some of that as well through the Elon groups, right?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of work with that. Really, I see the phase 4 of the TFT research for me specifically was writing outside the university, because that's where Elon was, where my research group came together. And there were several different groups in that research seminar that did research on transfer specifically. And there were a couple, mine and Kathy's group, that did use TFT as part of the research. And so this is just getting us really started and what transfer, specifically TFT, looks like outside of the university. I think it has really interesting connections for what it can do for students in terms of, like you mentioned, like lifelong and life-wide writing. And it's really exciting to think about where we can go from here with this type of research and helping students. These points that we've just talked about, of course, no means the only futures for writing transfer or even TFT.
Mhm.
We only see them as things that we have been dabbling in or connected to ourselves. And we find them all to be very exciting, but we know there's other research being done. And there's lots of resources out there now on transfer that haven't been around, but Kathy has played such a big part in helping to produce so many of them. And I think we would be remiss not to mention, what does the future of research look like when it includes AI? And of course,
Yeah.
we don't know what that looks like just yet, but
I know,
it will
and now
be
we've got to,
exciting.
I know we got to try and figure it out with Kathy retired. That's probably the hardest part.
Well, is she really retired? I mean,
We'll
she
see.
still
We'll
likes
see.
to.
We got some themes and some possible futures and some probable frustrations, I suppose, on our part. But anyway, it was good talking
Right.
with you about this. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun.